Okay. So I imagine you can see the screen, right?
Yep, looks good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the way so what I'd like to do is today is to just talk about sort of all the key pointers of applying to a pilot project. And first thing I thought I'd put up here is there's a set of timelines to make sure that you can you address this. So first of all, you've already got your letters of intent, and in the website, if you looked at that, there's a sort of a general information process of what's there. The letters of intent are due on August 1st, okay, and that's a hard deadline. It's 5 p.m. All right, so make sure that you put the effort into making really solid letters of intent, addressing all the issues, which we'll go into in a few minutes, and it's got to be a really clear and concise statement. On September 1st, you'd be notified for the acceptance, whether your letters of intent has been accepted, and then you've been invited to submit a full application. And beyond that, we're going to have some other training sessions. One that would be specifically for applicants working on budget and other forms. There'll be other training sessions as needed as well, including training for navigator use and everything else. So basically, the full application deadline will be on November 1st. So September 1st to October 1st to November 1st, that's 8 weeks. That's not a huge amount of time. So my recommendation would be when you submit a letter of intent, you really start to get your ducks in line early before you actually get your invitation to submit a full application, because if you don't do that, you're going to be behind the game. So just make sure you get your ducks in line, make sure you get all the individuals you need to collaborate with, all those who you're working with, and everything else. On February 26th, so between November 1st and February 26th, they'll be reviewed, they'll be rank ordered, they'll be basically selected for the quality of the research, and as well as binning them in various areas that are necessary for research by the reviewers and the committee, and then they will be people will be notified of the decisions. Now, once you're notified of a decision, your work's not done. All I can say is that this is a NIH-based granting mechanism. The money doesn't come from our pockets, but it comes from the NIH. It comes from the National Institute of General Medicine. All the criteria involving IRB, IACUC, or any types of important documents need to be addressed immediately after this. Okay, it's just like what we call at least in the R01 world, that you get a just in time, and a just in time basically tells you jump up and take care of these things. So I just wanted to let you know that these things need to be taken care of right away. And then, there'll be other meetings as well. You get your regulatory approvals, get everything in for your JIT just in time. And then it will, if you do this all properly, you'll get NIAM's approval, and then be able to start your project. But you can't start it until it's approved by the NIH. Okay, so that's basically the regular timeline here. Today, we're just going to focus on the letters of intent and the things that you need to know for that. Okay, I'm going to close this, and well, let me open this. So you all received this, the pilot projects program, and the general information is about eligibility and requirements. Okay, so basically, if you have a project that's going to require a navigator, it would be really good to connect with a research navigator to at least start planning and thinking about your project, and be able to have someone to talk to be able to get the best advice as far as how to put your proposal together. These are projects. Now, keep in mind, when you design these projects, and in the letter of intent, it's going to be clear that this is it's designed to be a 1-year project, okay? You don't want to be overly enthusiastic, overly ambitious, and try to propose something that's going to take 2 or 3 years. So it's really try to focus on a really solid project that will take about 1 year to complete. And these projects should be designed to produce really, really nice results, publishable results. So you should have a question in mind, frame that question properly, and be able to generate the preliminary data that you need also for external grant applications. So the idea being is this is going to be a very important step to be able to outline your project, but also to frame your project in a way that you can actually write the application in a very consistent and logical pattern. So as the NNE-CTR, we encourage proposals that involve collaborations between different idea state investigators and lead institutions, as Maine Health and University of Vermont, and as well as other partnering institutions. There's USM, UNE, Dartmouth, and NNE Co-op, PCBRN, and there's others as well. We, as a whole, we do encourage collaborations between basic and translational scientists and clinical investigators, and between population health scientists and community practitioners. And as I thought, now here's a question actually I have, Tom. What's the budget for these projects?
It's going to be increased to $40,000 direct costs.
Okay, $40,000 direct costs. Okay, I thought that 38 didn't sound right to me.
Yeah, up to 40,000.
Up to 40. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about $40,000. So keep in mind also, when you plan your project, the budget should be consistent with the project you plan, right? So you can't plan a $200,000 project on a $40,000 budget. So this is all part of the review process. It needs to be within the boundaries of what you're limited to. Okay, and the expectations are there's a number of expectations and priority topics, and there's a list of them here, and you've seen this. These are types of projects: addiction medicine, cancer, cardiovascular disease, that we encourage applicants to submit for. These are oftentimes understudied areas, and they're important areas to investigate. There's also a number of eligibility requirements that are required, and one of these is that you must meet some of these following criteria. One, again, just reiterating, the project will take place and consist of partners from idea states. You can collaborate with people from other institutions that are in a non-idea state, as long as none of the federal money from the grant is being expended for that purpose. Okay. And each collaborating institution receiving NNE-CTR funds must be incorporated in an idea state. Okay, so that's just basically saying a similar thing. Okay, so at least one member of the team must hold a faculty position or affiliated appointment with Maine Health or UVM or USM. And we do encourage applications from junior faculty, as long as they have an experienced mentor at their side to be able to assist them in the process and to be able to provide mentorship. The pilot lead may not currently have research funding from any other idea program. This is a problem. So if you already have funding from a COBRE, for example, a COBRE pilot project program or INBRE program, you are disallowed from applying for this. Okay, so you make sure that all that information must be disclosed prior to the application. All right, and the project must be translational and clinical. If it's purely a basic research project, it's not eligible. However, there are instances where if you have basic research that sort of borderlines clinical and it's related to disease prognosis or targeting of disease, that would be that may be acceptable. So carefully, it should be a very translational and clinical in nature is ideal. But there is a encouragement to be able to collaborate with basic and clinical groups. The experienced faculty with established research extending into clinical and translational investigation can also, with a community-based physician, the research must be distinct from the currently funded project. So if you're an established investigator, that these pilot projects should be uniquely different from what they already do. Okay. And also community-based physicians must have an affiliation or appointment with a collaborating partner. So they must be affiliated or with the NNE-CTR, and must be a member of NNE-CTR, and they must be affiliated with an academic researcher from either UVM or Maine Health. Okay. So again, what I'm going to say is, after submitting an LOI, these will be reviewed, and you'll be notified by September 1st. But again, during that time is a time where you can start preparing for the potential eventuality that you'll be moving forward on your application. So I think that's really important to get a good head start. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to do the, so I'm going to go now to the instructions to sort of, this gets more into the nitty gritty of it. And if you can't find these in the Northern New England Clinical Translational and Research Network site, please, contact Meredith and Sheila, and they will certainly guide you into getting it. It's actually really easy to find. There's a link on the initial letter requesting for letters of intent, and it gets you actually right to that point. Okay, so submission instructions, right? First of all, I mean, it's basically it's fairly straightforward. First of all, the one thing I need to point out right off the top is this is a one-page letter of intent. Okay, so it's going to have to be crafted pretty carefully to be able to really state your point. So you have to answer a number of questions, and you have to initially, so that there's some questions that you have to submit before you questions you have to actually answer before you submit the application, and then when you get to the application part, we'll get to that, but it's really one page. So a one-page letter of intent is appropriate, and it really, but you have to have, again, you have to have a really good logical pattern of events and a good logical plan that you hope to proceed and writing a full application for. Okay, so some of the questions that you have to enter before you submit is the title, is the type of award category or categories of the proposed research project, and I think this is based on the multiple what was it, the GUND? Is the GUND would be indicated here? Is that right, Sheila? Or anybody? The GUND application. So if you
the GUND will go through a different mechanism. So these are the questions that you have to answer in the REDCap survey.
oh,
The
okay.
link. So these, these you'll have to check boxes and yes or no. The GUND LOI will be submitted differently, and we can talk about that at the end. So the GUND one doesn't go through this particular REDCap
I'll let someone
system.
else talk about that. Right. Okay. But well, regardless, there's a number of questions that need to be answered, and this is in REDCap as you go through the process.
Rob, something that's hitting me as I'm looking at this is we are also going to be receiving LOIs from investigators who previously submitted an application, and now they're submitting a revised application that's responsive to critique. So it might be helpful for them to indicate that it is an amended application, And they may even want to, in a sentence or two, explain how they address the recommendations, from the previous review.
Right, right.
That's a great, yeah, that's a great point. And if, when we get to the actual application phase, there is a one-page document required for that if it is a resub. But you're right, Gary, that is something we should have included in here.
And then the other thing is, if people have big ideas, but that's unrealistic in a 12-month period with $40,000 of funding, it can be helpful to explain how a realistic, clearly defined pilot project is going to be a platform for expansion into, in the sentence where it's leading to. And I think that will really support, the viability of the application.
Right, right. Yeah. So yeah, a well-planned pilot project can lead to bigger and better things, more grant funding, further funding from NIH. So the idea being is that a pilot project really is a test project to generate the data you need to become successful in future funding opportunities. All right. So there's a number of questions here that you can answer, including how do you hear about this funding opportunity, and as well as others, and also key personnel is basically is a full set of questions for each of the key personnel for the project, and the initial first key personnel is listed initially, and that's the primary contact, and so there's a whole bunch of things that need to be answered, but you need to go through that carefully, because this is all very important and relevant to your overall letter of intent. Okay, I'm not going to go into that too much detail here, and but important questions are, and some of these are critical criteria. For example, if a project lead does have grant support from IDEA program, and they click yes here, they're really not included, not included in the pilot program. So they've already had funding from an IDEA type program, and you also have to indicate whether any of the investigators have current or pending awards for this or similar projects, because you can't get funded twice for the same project.
Rob, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
That refers to, because this arose in the chat as well, that refers to if you are a PI on, say, a research project from a COBRE or an INBRE, or if you've had a pilot from a COBRE and an INBRE and you were the PI, then you're not eligible. If you were just part of a research team, that doesn't exclude you from applying.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, the project lead here would be part of the that'd be a project lead, so that would exclude them and the COBRE. Right. And then you also have to indicate which of the regulatory approvals that you require. For example, IRB, IACUC, or the primary ones, and then whether regulatory submission has been initiated. And also, will you need assistance from with IRB process, for example, a navigator, or which NNE-CTR shared resources will be used, for example, the port services, etc. And then you need to provide a 3 to 4 sentence description of the proposed research that summarizes the focus and relevance. And then you can upload your letter of intent. Again, it's 1 page. You need the names of the project lead, co-leads, and mentors, title, a statement describing the rationale for the study, hypothesis to be tested, a list of aims carefully crafted, with each aim indicating the question that's addressed, the proposed research and intended outcome, and also the impact and what you expect to learn from your pilot project, i.e. deliverables and other key elements. Okay. So after you submit, again, You should receive a confirmation within 24 hours. If you don't, please contact Meredith or Sheila or anybody else and let them know. Because if you don't get a confirmation, you better check to make sure it actually went through. Okay, so that's pretty much what I was going to present, was just sort of the basics of this, and then bring it up for discussion or have anybody else add to that.
There's a couple of things I'd like to add. One is that, I'm sure this is in the forms, but it's important to emphasize it, is that the PI has to have a faculty level appointment. I mean, in the past, we've gotten applications from postdocs or residents or clinical fellows, and none of them can be a PI on a pilot. They can be part of the research team. That's not a problem, but they can't be the PI.
Okay, yeah.
The other thing which may come up is who can be supported on a pilot grant, and faculty salaries are not permitted.
Right. Yeah. So,
And for collaborators, and collaborators strengthen an application, because team science is something which is valued extensively. Although there is a single PI that is designated, co-investigators are encouraged.
And at this point, at the LOI stage, you may not know who you could use as a collaborator. You may want to reach out to Rob or Janet and, give them an idea of what you're planning on doing an LOI for, and ask, if they know of a collaborator or a mentor or other type of people to help there.
yeah, that's a really good point. Normally, you really have to look around, find out, the key with an application like this is the collaborations you get should really fill the gaps in the areas that you lack knowledge. So if you have the difficulty or are not quite sure how to do something, but you need to get this done, you have to actually try to focus on somebody who does that. So yeah, I would reach out to definitely reach out to somebody if you think you're weak in a certain area, because that shows in the application, the ultimate application, if you are weak in the area. I use collaborators all the time in my my work.
There's a question in the chat about whether you include a reference list as part of the LOI or do any in-text citations.
Text citations. If I think if there's a key paper, you could reference it in the letter of, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what other people think. I would say if there's a really key paper that's really important for proposing what you're doing, I don't think there should be a problem doing that. But I don't think you need to, I wouldn't do a whole lot of referencing.
Right. In the past, we don't require it. Sometimes people do include references. That's okay. But I mean, generally, it's not required.
With regard to resources, to be able to identify collaborators, partnerships, or groups, especially for community engagement or for practice-based research investigation, Megan Stabler is a tremendous resource in terms of being able to link you up with folks in the PBCRN who could really be assets to a program. And then you've got Jan and Kathleen in the Community Engagement and Outreach Corps with regard to community partners. So this is a way to be able to bring the expertise into your program that you may feel is very, very important, but you yourself don't have all of the other tools or the contacts in place.
Yeah. So has everybody been able to download all the documents necessary from the website. I imagine if you haven't, make sure you let us know. Yeah, it's a one-page document, the letter of intent, so you know it needs to be well thought out.
Rob, would you like me to share my screen and just sort of do a brief navigation through the actual LOI submission form? I mean, I can't fill anything in because I don't want to make another record, but you know, kind of show you what's there when you hit click to apply for the LOI. Do people have questions about the navigation of that, or?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
I unshared, so you're all set.
Yeah, okay. So on this main page here, if you hit this click to apply, it will bring you to this form. And so this is in REDCap, and you will have to, this principal investigators field is populated by NNE-CTR members. So if you haven't registered, your name won't be in there yet. And so if you need to register, this is how you go ahead and do that. And Sheila and I have been seeing notifications of a lot of people registering lately, so that's great news. So again, you won't be able to move forward unless you've registered. So as I said in the chat, there's room for up to 5 key personnel. One thing to remember is key personnel number 1, that's where all the communications are going to go to. So if you've put, say, your mentor or something as senior key personnel number 1, they will be the one getting all the emails. So this is pretty important to put yourself. Also really helpful is to use your work email address. We've had some people put in like a Gmail and then never hear from us. So that's just some interesting guidance there. So then after that, these were the questions that Rob was referring to. So that document that we went through basically just lists all of these same things, and you'll see, you know, these are just buttons or drop downs. And then these are the additional questions here. So, you know, you'll just click, click, click. Here's all the cores that are the shared resources. And then we have to have this filled in just as a text box, just the summary. And then again, your instructions for what needs to be on the LOI is here. And then, oops, that needs to be updated. And then submit. And the submission confirmation will come from the NNE-CTR information email address that we've shared in a few places. Is that helpful?
Yes, I think so.
And then if your application is, or if your LOI is accepted for you to submit a full application, the REDCap system will send a link, a unique link for you to submit your full application. So it'll all be together in one package. So if you are invited to submit a full application, you won't find the link to submit anywhere other than in an email to your work email and to the PI that you've received after September 1st, on or around September 1st.
And there's no application fee.
Any other questions?
This is an open forum now, so if anybody has anything to ask, please ask. Just raise your hand and talk.
I could put a little more nuance on the no money getting spent in a non-ID estate. Generally, that's true. However, under limited circumstances, some money can go to a non-ID estate. For example, for a consultant, if you've had a collaborator and they'll serve as a consulting role, I mean, that is eligible for paying those consultant charges. Although those people could also be an other significant contributor on your project and not, draw any salary or have any effort. And another instance is, for example, if you need assays done, say like an ELISA or an immunoassay for some strange protein, and there's a university core service in Massachusetts that runs that assay, you can pay for that as well. But generally speaking, you have to stay away from sending money to non-ID estates.
It also runs.
Tom,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Tom, a question just came up in the chat again about the Rue Institute. Do you want to handle that, or do you want me to handle that?
I'll handle that. Yeah, that's come up. The unfortunate part is that the Rue Institute is viewed by NIGMS as an outpost of Northeastern University. And in fact, grant materials get submitted with an address of Northeastern University. So actually, no, we cannot collaborate with the Rue, aside from the kind of thing that I just mentioned. Yeah, you could have a Rue consultant, but they can't be a collaborating partner. You can't pay 10% salary of somebody at the Rue. It's unfortunate, but that's what NIGMS has decided.
No.
But it can go the other way around, because if, for instance, the Rue Institute wanted to invest in a pilot project and provide $15,000 for funding for something which is of mutual interest, that can be done. But it's that we can't spend money outside of the ID estates. ID estates can spend money, can invest in an ID estate project.
Tom, question to ask you, actually based on this idea state concept. Now that there are other idea states outside of Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. Say down in the deep south, there's some states that have unique capabilities as well. Can you collaborate with the outside institution?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, by all means.
Like
for some community-based projects, that might be advantageous, because northern New England rural, I think, is very different from Alabama or Mississippi rural, so that could actually strengthen an application.
Right. Okay. So that's that's a very positive thing, because you sort of spread out to multiple states that are throughout the country that are idea states.
Maybe we should put on our site the list of the 13 CTRs and the list of the idea states, and that would give you an idea in terms of what the actual idea landscape is out there for opportunities.
I think that's a good idea, because as Tom mentioned, if you had a ELISA for a very, very difficult protein, there may be an idea state out there that does that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. So you just have to sort of investigate.
So for those who don't know, there are 23 idea states plus the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. So those are the eligible.
Yeah.
And I just popped that in the chat for everyone.
And Puerto Rico actually has a CTR.
Oh.
We also do have a page on idea states on the website that shows a map and where they are and that kind of stuff. It probably needs to be updated, but it's on there.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, so if anybody, I guess we're done.
Thank you very much.